From my video where I said that the Bible is not logical, that the Bible is illogical or not logical, I got a lot of comments, and a lot of those comments came from people in Africa. And they were all saying pretty much the exact same sentiment. You know, this one talking about how other stories aren't logical, so, you know, but you just don't understand. But what does other stories have to do with the fact that I'm talking about you? Hey, things of the spirit are nonsense to a carnal man because you wouldn't understand it. You know, the same kind of stuff that you can't comprehend it because it's God's level stuff. And even getting into the details, this one kind of like tricks his own mind when he talks about the fact that, hey, Adam is just meaning mankind. So therefore, in the naming of the animals, he's talking about mankind, and we're still naming those animals because Adam meaning mankind. But if you took that route, then you would have to say the entire portion about Adam is just talking about mankind. So mankind banged Eve and had Cain and Abel and whomever else and Seth. So that's mankind, not an individual man, not an individual woman. The Cain and Abel story. So the Cain killed Abel is not an individual story. Because if that's the case, when we get to Noah, and if you say that each one of those represents tribes, well, when you get to Noah, then you cannot say that Noah represents a tribe because a tribe doesn't fit on the boat. It gives specific numbers as to the people on the boat. So you can't flip-flop it and make it fit the narrative when you desire for it to fit the narrative by just saying that, hey, this part is just talking about mankind. But then later on, you want to make it talk about an individual. So that doesn't work. That doesn't work. And then you're talking about the 42 she-bears the two she-bears who ate the kids. And y'all try to make up all kind of stories about that one. That, you don't know how God made it so that those she-bears can eat those kids. Maybe they kept hunting them down over a couple of days and that sort of thing. So you're extrapolating your own ideas to make it fit. But all of them are effectively saying the same thing. But I want you to conceptualize something for just a moment. Just think about this. What they wrote 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago is not logical to people who are living today, who have built their morality stacked on stacked on stack as time has went on and moralities have changed and culture have changed, who have built their intellect stacking on stacking and stacking and stacking based on the intellect of the people up till today. What we know about science today, they didn't know about science back then. So of course, to them, it is quite logical to assume that the stars were gods, that the sun is a god, that the moon is a god, that forces of nature that are happening is either because of a god or it is because of punishments for not being obedient to a god. Whether your crop comes in or not, whether you win a battle or not, has something to do with a god. Because for us, that would be illogical because we know better. We have more information. We know how cloud formation works. We know how the Gulf Stream works, the North Atlantic Current. We know about the Ring of Fire, so we understand why those volcanoes erupt and tsunamis. We understand those things. We know what stars are. We know that our sun is just a star. It's the closest one to us. So by having that knowledge, we will look at what they thought and say that it is illogical to think that way, simply because they were lacking in the knowledge that we have today, which we built over time by coming to higher levels of understanding. So it is not that it's illogical to me. It was logical to those people to think that way. And so they wrote it down in a way that was logical to those people, not to the God that those people give credibility towards, which is why when you get to a higher state of understanding the knowledge to which we have, you recognize that it is an illogical God to do the things in the way that they say they did them, because it goes against science. It goes against human survival. Think about human survival or any animal survival. One guy was saying that, how do you know the bears would have got out of the other 9 bears would have left the tree? Every animal, everything on the planet has an instinct of survival, right? Everything wants to survive, does its best to survive. If a loud boom goes off, almost every animal will scurry away from the loud noise. This happens. They don't stand there. When storms come, the birds fly away. Like this morning, this mockingbird was going to town at 7 o'clock this morning. But as soon as the storm clouds came in this morning, that mockingbird went for shelter. Self-preservation. We all have that. So they would leave the tree. The bears would leave. I've done this before. I used to go bear hunting with a friend of mine. And you know that if you saw 2 or 3 bears together, which was very rare, but if you did see it, that you got one shot. You make your one shot. The sound usually scares away whatever bear you did not aim at. And deer hunters out there, y'all know this to be true. You see a pod of deer, you know you got one shot if you're using a gun, because they will scurry after that. Humans are even more so. And I know what some of y'all are thinking, but don't you even dare type it in there. But humans in general, if 2 bears come out of them woods behind me, I'm not going to, I called him Baldy, let me take this punishment. No, it's not going to happen. And for the guy said, you don't know, they could have tracked them down over days. And they specifically tracked down just those 42. Illogical. But like I said in the very beginning, well, middle of this video, understand that the people who wrote it when they wrote it, it was logical to them. They were ignorant of some of the information that we have today. It doesn't make them bad people. It's just the world they live in. In 2,000 years, there will be people who will look at the way we live and certain things that we think scientifically, medically, morally, and they will say that we were illogical and ignorant in our thinking back then. The same way we look at slavery. At one point, it was logical, it made sense, it was godly, but now we know better. Mistreatment of women, it was logical, it was godly, it made sense to them. We know better now. So all things work in that way. So I know it hurts your feelings because you believe in this God, and your belief in this God has to say that everything in this book has to be right and holy. And that is actually what hinders you from being able to grow and become the greatest version of yourself. But always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibration.